In the silence of time, a queen waits to rise again. In the stars, her curse still burns. This is the story they tried to bury, but could not end. The Jewel of 7 Stars by Bram Stoker. It all began with a letter. Margaret Trelawney had written to me in the middle of the night, her words filled with panic and confusion. Her father, Abel Trelawney, had collapsed under strange circumstances. Within the hour, I was at their house. Margaret met me at the door, pale, trembling. She led me to her father's study, a room packed with relics from ancient Egypt. There, she handed me his journal, or rather, what remained of it. Torn pages, ink stains, newspaper clippings. I opened it slowly and began to read.
There are mysteries which men can only guess at, which age by age they may solve only in part.
I had no idea I was stepping into one of them. We found him unconscious, bleeding, yet no one had entered. Doors locked, windows sealed. No sign of intrusion. Just claw-like marks on his wrists, and the heavy scent of ancient dust. Margaret stood close by, her voice trembling.
Sometimes I wake up breathless, like something's watching me.
I turned to an old newspaper clipping tucked inside the journal. Another cryptic line stood out.
Some things are too dangerous to meddle with.
His room was unlike anything I'd ever seen. A museum of madness, scrolls, amulets, statues. The air itself seemed to whisper Egypt. And always the name, Queen Tira. Corbeck, the scholar who had accompanied Trelawney on his expeditions, leaned in to explain. She ruled in silence, feared even in her own time, buried in secret.
The old gods had strange secrets.
He was trying to uncover them. I saw her, Queen Tira, preserved, perfect, veiled face, folded hands. And at her neck, a 7-pointed jewel.
The dead sleep in silence, but sometimes they dream.
This wasn't just sleep. Something stirred. I tried to reason. There must be an explanation. But his notes spoke of stars, rituals, timing, resurrection.
There are things done under the stars which would make men mad if they knew them.
And still, we read on. Days passed. Trelawney lay unmoving. But subtle signs began, a twitch of fingers, a fluttering eyelid. At night, a presence seemed to move through the house. Margaret whispered again in the dark.
Sometimes I wake up breathless, like something's watching me.
The veil that hides the unknown from us was lifting, and we were afraid to see.
We began decoding his writings. He had mapped the jewel to stars, 7 points, 7 celestial alignments. At the center, a sapphire, the eye of life.
The stars are the eyes of time. Through them, destiny watches.
He believed fate was watching and waiting. Among the scrolls, we found her message. Margaret read it aloud, slowly, almost reverently.
I shall return from beyond time. I shall rule again beneath the sun.
He who wakes me shall know fear and glory alike.
Her words were not memory. They were intention. Margaret was changing. Her voice deepened. Her eyes sharpened. She was Margaret and someone else. She speaks like a priestess, as if something ancient walks through her.
The ancient soul is not gone. It waits in silence, watching.
We assembled the relics, scarabs, amulets, arranged them precisely. Each tied to a star. From the last crate, the death mask of Tira.
That which was once buried will rise again with memory and with wrath.
This was no longer theory, it was a plan. And time was closing in. Then, one morning, he opened his eyes. Professor Trelawney had returned from the edge, but he wasn't the same.
The time has come.
He didn't ask about Margaret. He didn't ask about the ritual. He spoke only to the stars.
There is no death, only transition.
Margaret's dreams were no longer just dreams. She saw deserts, pyramids, a woman with a golden mask walking through sandstorms.
She calls to me from beneath the sands.
Her voice shifted. Her posture changed. She was still Margaret, but not entirely.
When the soul returns, it needs a vessel.
At last the stars aligned. We gathered in the great hall. The seven-pointed star was drawn. Candles lit. The sarcophagus opened. And the night trembled.
Let the stars be witness. Let time bend its knee.
It had begun. The room exploded in golden light. Walls shook. Books flew from their shelves. And each of us saw visions. I see war, fire, the Nile in flames.
In the eye of eternity, a moment is enough to reshape destiny.
And then, silence. We awoke on the floor. The sarcophagus, empty. The relics, scorched. The only one standing was Margaret. Margaret?
I am she who was and shall be again.
And in that moment, I knew she was gone. Or perhaps she had just arrived. The ritual was over. The stars had shifted. The house was still. Too still. No words were spoken. No cries. Just the hum of something ancient and unfinished. Is this the cost of waking the dead?
There are forces older than man, and older than gods.
We weren't meant to touch them, and yet we did. Margaret looked unchanged, but she was no longer the woman I knew. Sometimes she spoke in ancient phrases. Sometimes she didn't speak at all.
What we awaken may not return to slumber.
Was it her voice or someone else's? Trelawney vanished. His books burned. His final notes spoke of a door opened too wide. Margaret began to drift away from me, from herself, from this world.
Eternity does not answer questions, it simply waits.
And I was left with no answers, only silence. One evening, I stood alone by the window. Above me, 7 stars burned in a perfect arc. And through the breeze, I heard her voice.
I shall return from within eternity.
The door closed, and the story never did. The past is not dead. It dreams in silence.